The glass walls of my office reflected the morning sun, scattering golden light across polished marble floors. From my desk, I could see the harbor, rows of colossal ships, their steel hulls glistening like silent giants awaiting my command. People thought steel was cold. To me, it was alive, steady, a companion that never judged me the way people once had. I leaned back in my chair, smoothing the sleeve of my cream silk blouse. The fabric whispered under my fingertips, a quiet reminder of how far I'd come from the days when even affording a decent shirt had felt like a luxury. My heels tapped against the marble as I shifted, that small rhythmic sound anchoring me while my phone buzzed against the desk. I glanced at the screen, an email, bolded in my inbox. Exclusive invitation, Atlantic Horizon Cruise, Summer Gala. I almost laughed. That same company had once told me I didn't belong on their cruise. Too young, too poor, too invisible. Their rejection had burned into me like salt in an open wound. And now their flagship liner was leased through my company. Without my fleet, their gala wouldn't even leave the port. The irony was sweet, but beneath it, the old ache still lingered, the memory of that humiliation I'd carried for years. I let the silence of the harbor fill me, studying the storm that memory still stirred inside. I was 19 the summer it happened. The heat in Miami pressed down like a wet blanket, clinging to every breath. My friends, or the girls I thought were my friends, were buzzing with excitement about the cruise their families had booked for the season. "Emily, you're not seriously thinking of coming, are you?" I still remember Madison's laugh, sharp as broken glass. She tossed her glossy blonde hair over one shoulder, her designer sunglasses reflecting the pier. "It's exclusive. You know, not everyone gets to come along." Not everyone. Meaning me. I felt the blood rush to my face, my hands curling into fists at my sides. My palms were damp, and when I unclenched them, half-moon imprints from my nails glowed red against my skin. "I have money saved," I whispered, hating how shaky my voice sounded. "I could." Madison's laughter was joined by Rachel's, then Nicole's. They didn't even try to hide it. "Honey, it's not about scraping pennies together. It's about belonging," Rachel said, her voice syrupy and cruel. Their parents were watching from a distance, expensive jewelry glinting under the sun, their expressions more amused than embarrassed. They didn't see me as equal. They didn't even see me at all. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat nearly choking me. I wanted to scream, to demand a place beside them. Instead, I stood there, silent, humiliated, staring at the massive ship rocking gently at the dock, a floating palace that might as well have been on the moon. That night, when I got home, my grandmother found me sitting on the porch steps, staring at nothing. She was the only one who noticed when I was breaking. She pressed a small silver locket into my palm. "Emily," she said softly, her voice warm as summer rain, "the sea doesn't reject anyone. Only people do. Remember that. You're bigger than their boat." Her words cut through my despair like a lifeline. I clutched the locket so tightly, I thought it might leave a permanent mark. The next morning, I walked past the pier again. I didn't even glance at Madison or Rachel, or the glittering ship they'd boarded. My heart was raw, but my mind was sharp with a new certainty. I wasn't going to beg for a seat on their cruise. I was going to chart my own course. I didn't become a shipping magnate overnight. The truth is, for years, I was the girl hauling boxes on the Miami docks while the others were sipping champagne on pool decks. The first job I landed was as a dockhand. It was grueling work, sweat soaking through my t-shirts as I hauled crates twice my size. Men twice my age smirked, betting I wouldn't last a week. But I did. My muscles ached, my nails broke, my skin darkened under the sun, but I kept showing up. One evening, as I sat alone on the pier, nursing blistered palms, Captain Rose found me. She was a woman in her 50s, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, the kind of woman whose voice carried over roaring seas. "You've got grit, kid," she said, tossing me a water bottle. "But grit needs direction. You want to keep carrying boxes, or do you want to learn how to command what's inside them?" She became my mentor. Under her, I learned the language of shipping, manifests, cargo insurance, customs paperwork. It wasn't glamorous, but I found beauty in the order of it. Numbers began to sing for me. Routes became stories I could predict, shape, and control. There were nights when doubt clawed at me. I'd sit on the floor of my tiny apartment, bills scattered around me, wondering if I'd made a mistake. My hands shook as I wrote out checks that barely cleared. Sometimes I painted my chipped nails black just to feel a sliver of control, one small rebellion against the chaos. But then came the small wins. My first contract to move textiles from Havana to Miami. My first real profit, a sum so modest it wouldn't have covered Madison's handbag, but it felt like the world to me. With every step, I invested back into the business. A used truck, a leased warehouse. Eventually, a second-hand cargo vessel that smelled of rust and diesel but carried my name on the documents. That day, standing on the deck of my very first ship, I pressed my grandmother's locket to my chest and whispered, "This is mine." I kept quiet about my progress. On social media, I posted vague updates, a sunrise photo from the pier, a blurry shot of coffee in a paper cup. My family thought I was working odd jobs, barely getting by. My so-called friends never asked. Their silence was almost a blessing. It gave me room to grow in the shadows. The years passed and my fleet grew. Contracts expanded. Investors took notice. I learned to walk into boardrooms filled with men in tailored suits and speak with a voice that didn't tremble. I wore blouses that cost more than my first month's rent, but I never forgot the feel of sweat-drenched t-shirts and splintered crates. Every success felt like a brick in the foundation I was building. Brick by brick, ship by ship, I was creating something far larger than myself. Something even Madison and Rachel could never laugh away. And all the while, my secret grew with me, hidden beneath modest smiles and half-truths. I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming unstoppable. The night of the gala was electric. The Atlantic Horizon cruise was docked in Miami, its decks glittering with strings of lights that reflected in the dark water below. The ship looked just as untouchable as it had when I was 19, but tonight, I wasn't standing on the pier, staring up in envy. I was walking into the grand ballroom of the cruise company's headquarters as an invited guest of honor. The room smelled of salt air, perfume, and money. Crystal chandeliers swayed gently, catching the ocean breeze that slipped through the open terrace doors. Waiters in pressed white jackets floated past with trays of champagne. I could feel eyes turning toward me as I entered, my black evening gown skimming the floor, a thin chain of my grandmother's silver locket resting against my collarbone. Across the room, I saw them, Madison, Rachel, Nicole, older now but unmistakable. Their laughter hadn't changed, though it carried more desperation now, the kind of sound made by people clinging to relevance. Their parents stood nearby, aging but still sharp in their tailored suits and gowns. I moved through the crowd with calm precision, each step of my heels clicking like a drumbeat. Whispers followed me. People knew who I was now. The cruise company's CEO, a tall man with silvering hair and a forced smile, raised a glass as he welcomed me to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are honored to celebrate our partnership with Harborwave Shipping." That was my company's name.
Mine.
A murmur spread through the crowd as he continued, without which the Atlantic Horizon would not be sailing this season. I let the applause wash over me before stepping forward. The microphone was cool against my palm. My gaze swept the room, finally resting on Madison and her circle. Their faces had gone pale, recognition dawning. "Thank you," I began, my voice steady smooth. "When I was 19, I was told I didn't belong on this cruise. That I wasn't enough. Tonight, I stand before you as the owner of the company that makes this voyage possible. The same ships that carry your luxury? They belong to me." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint clink of a dropped glass. Madison's lips parted, but no words came. Rachel blinked rapidly, her hand tightening on her clutch. Nicole's face burned red, her eyes darting away. Their parents shifted uncomfortably, suddenly remembering that summer day on the pier when they'd looked at me like I was nothing. Now they stood in a ballroom filled with my employees, my partners, my fleet anchored outside like sentinels in the harbor. I let the moment stretch, suspense building like a wave about to break. Then I smiled, not cruelly, but with the kind of calm power that comes from knowing you've already won. My ships carry more than cargo, I said softly. They carry every ounce of doubt you once threw at me. Every sneer, every laugh. And yet here I am, still sailing, still growing. The audience erupted in applause. Some rose to their feet. Madison looked like she might sink into the marble floor. I stepped back from the microphone, letting the crowd's reactions seal the truth. I no longer needed their approval. I never had. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about revelation. They had refused me passage once, but I hadn't needed their ticket. I had built the entire fleet. After the applause faded and the music swelled again, people swarmed toward me. Investors, partners, strangers eager to shake my hand. But I only saw them. Madison, Rachel, Nicole, and their parents, frozen near the back of the ballroom. Eventually, they gathered the courage to approach. Madison was the first, her voice strained but sweetened with artificial charm. "Emily, wow. You look incredible. I had no idea you'd done so well." Her words dangled in the air like bait. I met her gaze evenly. "You didn't ask." Rachel shifted beside her, her clutch trembling in her hand. "We were young, immature. We didn't mean to hurt you." "Yes, you did," I interrupted, my voice soft but unyielding. "You meant every laugh, every word. And for years, I carried them like anchors." They wilted under the weight of my calm. Their parents tried to recover the situation, offering businesslike smiles. "Perhaps we can put the past aside," Mr. Whitaker suggested smoothly. "Our families could collaborate. There's opportunity here if we join forces." I almost laughed at the irony. The same people who once told me I didn't belong were now asking for partnership. But I didn't dismiss them outright. Power wasn't about revenge. It was about choice. "If I help you," I said slowly, "there will be conditions." Their eyes widened, desperate for my terms. I turned to Madison first. "You always mocked people for dreaming too small. If I'm to work with you, I want you to fund a women's scholarship program in maritime studies. You'll write the checks, and you'll stand on the stage handing those diplomas out." She blinked, her mouth opening in protest, but the look in my eyes silenced her. Next was Rachel. "You always pretended you were perfect, while tearing others down. If you want a place at my table, you'll volunteer your time at the Port's Community Center. Every week, mentoring young girls who don't believe they're good enough. You'll show them differently." Her face flushed, but she nodded faintly. Finally, I turned to Nicole. "You once told me belonging was something people like me couldn't buy. If you want in, you'll donate a portion of your family's shares in this cruise line to create a fund for underprivileged youth who want to travel the world. They deserve to belong, too." The parents exchanged glances, pride battling with the reality of their own declining influence. They knew they had no leverage here, not anymore. I let the silence hang, my conditions echoing in the ballroom's chandeliers. "If you agree, we can move forward. If you don't," I shrugged lightly. "My ship sail with or without you." Compassion softened my tone, but I didn't bend. This wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the rules. I would not repeat the patterns of exclusion they'd shown me. I was offering them a chance, not to reclaim me, but to transform themselves. Madison's voice broke the silence. "We'll do it," she whispered, her bravado finally stripped away. And in that moment, the power had shifted completely. Weeks later, I stood on the deck of one of my newest vessels, the Aurora Star, watching the sunrise paint the horizon in molten gold. The salty breeze tangled in my hair, and for the first time in years, the ache in my chest felt light. Madison had launched the scholarship program. I'd seen photos of her standing beside young women in graduation gowns, her posture awkward, but her smile genuine. Rachel had begun volunteering at the community center. One of the girls wrote me a letter saying Rachel told her, "You are already enough." Even Nicole, begrudging at first, had signed the papers transferring part of her family's shares into the youth travel fund. The transformation wasn't instant, but it was real. I didn't forgive them overnight. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't a gift you give for free. It's a process, a choice, one wave at a time. But seeing them take those steps, however unsteady, gave me something I hadn't expected: peace. I touched the silver locket around my neck, feeling the familiar grooves beneath my fingers. My grandmother's words whispered through my mind as if carried on the wind. The sea doesn't reject anyone. Only people do. She'd been right. The sea had never turned me away. It had tested me, yes, storms, sleepless nights, endless battles against doubt, but it had carried me forward when people tried to hold me back. As the aurora star cut smoothly through the waves, I closed my eyes and breathed in the salt air. My life was no longer defined by rejection, but by resilience. I had built not just ships, but an empire, a legacy, a home that could never be taken from me. And as the sun rose higher, flooding the horizon with light, I whispered the words I wanted every girl who ever felt left out to hear. They refused to let me board their cruise, but I didn't need their ticket. I built the whole ocean fleet instead.